Today, we'll be making carrot cake that's so delicious, you'll even replace your boring old birthday cake with it. Here are the ingredients that we'll need for today's recipe. I'll have everything linked in the description down below. Starting off, we'll need 12 ounces cream cheese, 1.5 cups unsalted butter, 4 to 6 cups icing sugar, 4 tablespoons of Kahlua, 300 grams all-purpose flour, 2 teaspoons baking powder, 2 teaspoons baking soda, 1 teaspoon salt, 1 tablespoon of cinnamon, 2 teaspoons nutmeg, 350 milliliters vegetable oil, 220 grams of brown sugar. Today, I'm using light brown sugar, 220 grams white sugar, 4 large eggs, 1 tablespoon vanilla, 300 grams carrots, 200 grams sultan raisins, and 1 cup of walnuts or pecans. With that all set, let's get started. Grab 1 cucumber, carrot. Let's start by peeling our carrot. Make sure you also take off the top and also the bottom. Now that we have this all peeled, let's set this aside and grab our grater. On your grater, you'll typically have a large side and a finer side. Today, we're going to be using the finer side just so that everything gets more incorporated while we cook things. Once you start getting down to this little bit, just be careful with it because I've nicked myself more than a few times and it's been worse than most cuts. This piece we can just leave out. Make sure you also clean out the stuff from the inside as well. This should be about 3 cups of grated carrot. It was a little over 300 grams to start with, the skin on and everything. After, we should be about 320 grams or so, which is perfectly fine. Let's just transfer this into a bowl. There we have it. So while we get on to the next part, let's preheat our oven to 350 degrees because this is gonna go pretty fast. Grab yourself a really large bowl and grab yourself a sieve. Now, the first thing we're going to do is put in all of our dry ingredients. Starting off, let's do 300 grams of all-purpose flour. After that, we're going to do our baking powder. So for the baking powder, we need 2 teaspoons. Next is going to be the baking soda. We're going to need about 2 teaspoons as well. Next, we're going to do 1 teaspoon of salt. For spices, we're going to do a mixture of cinnamon and nutmeg today. So for the cinnamon, I'd like to go a little bit heavy on this one, and I like to do about 1 tablespoon of it. All right, not coming out really great, but there we go. Now, for nutmeg, we need about 2 teaspoons. You can go a little bit lighter if you just aren't a fan of the flavor of nutmeg, but I'd at least do 1 teaspoon. With all our dry ingredients in there, let's just sieve them through. And with any of these lumps, you can just use your hands to push them through. Now, if you're like me and you use a little bit more of a coarse salt, you can just dump that in. So that's all our dry ingredients for this stage. Next, we need to move on to our wet ingredients. So, in this recipe, most of the moisture comes not by adding any milk, but by adding vegetable oil. This is going to ensure that it's way more moist than with milk, but it's also going to add a bunch of calories. So if that's not something you are looking for, you can always substitute it with 2% milk or whole milk for the same amount. So we need 350 milliliters in this today. Next, we're going to cream together the sugar in a medium bowl. Starting off, add 220 grams of light brown sugar and also 220 grams of white sugar. Now, at this stage, I like to mix it all together with my hand just to get out all the lumps. Alright, that's looking much better. Next, add in your oil, which is 350 milliliters. Next, we need to add 4 large eggs. If you're like me and you can't crack eggs, just drop them on the counter to crack them. Now, for flavor, we're going to add just a little bit of vanilla and a little bit of Kahlua. So, I have some natural vanilla from Mexico here, and I'm going to be using 1 tablespoon. And if you're liking a little bit of extra kick, this is what I really prefer in my carrot cake, Kahlua coffee liqueur. It just adds that little bit of extra depth to it. So, you don't need much, just 1 or 2 tablespoons. Now that we have everything together, just take a whisk and mix it all together. It's going to be a really thick batter, but once you add in all the carrots, it sort of adds that moisture to the cake, which is going to loosen it up a little bit. Alright, now that we have that incorporated, let's set it aside and bring back our dry ingredients. So, what we want to do is fold in our wet ingredients into our dry ingredients. Make sure you don't overmix the batter, or you will end up with a dense cake. Next, let's add in our walnuts. You can also use pecans as well, but I prefer walnuts as they're a bit cheaper. Also, we got some sultan raisins. Sultan raisins are a really good choice, but you can always use golden raisins as well. Give it a quick mix in. Alright, now the last step of this is to add in our shredded carrots. Now, let's just fold this all in. Make sure you try to split it up a little bit as well. Alright, so that's looking pretty good right there. Everything's thoroughly mixed, and we don't have any lumps. Today, I'm going to be using 3 shallow pans. These are 8-inch pie pans. I don't really have a 9-inch pan, but these should work. If you do have 2 9-inch pans, then it should fit this one recipe, but don't get too hung up on that. If you don't have those pans, it's fine. Just make sure that you're filling everything about halfway full. We're going to line it and grease it with a little bit of butter. So, I have a little bit of unsalted butter here, and we're just going to use our fingers. Just grab a little bit of it and spread it around. Make sure you get into the corners, and if you need a little bit more, just grab a little bit more. Alright, now that we have our one pan greased, I'll do these other ones in a second. Grab yourself a piece of parchment paper. You can buy these already in rounds from the store, or you can just cut down your own parchment paper. Now, there should be a glossy side and a non-glossy side. We're going to put the glossy side down, just like that. Alright, so that's all you're going to do with your pans. Let me get everything else ready, and then we'll move on to the next step. And there we have it. The next step is we're going to fill these about halfway with our batter. Today, for the batter, I have this 3-ounce cookie scoop, which should help with keeping everything even. You can also weigh it out, or you can just freeball it as well, whichever you want, but I prefer this way. I think it should be about 4 scoops in a pan. Yeah, that's looking about good. Let me finish up the rest, and I'll see you in a second. So, they're a little bit more full than I'd like. They're about 75% full right now. That being said, let's get them into the oven at 350 degrees for 30 to 35 minutes. Or until you can take a skewer, poke it in the center, and it comes out clean. While we wait for this to bake, let's get our icing ready. Alright, so today, the first thing you need to bring out is your good old KitchenAid. If you don't have a KitchenAid, you can always use a hand mixer. It's just going to take a little bit of extra time. Let's add our attachment. I'm going to be using the paddle with a silicone edge, just so it scrapes around the sides of the bowl as we mix. For the cream cheese icing, the first thing you need to do is take 1.5 cups of room temperature unsalted butter, and we need to mix this until it gets light and airy. If your butter isn't room temperature, you can stick it into a container and put it in a microwave for 10-second intervals until it's soft to the touch. Alright, that's looking pretty good, just scrape it down. Next, we're going to add in 12 ounces room temperature cream cheese. Today, I'll be using lactose-free cream cheese. So, that's 1.5 blocks of cream cheese. Heat it on high until the butter and cream cheese start to combine. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Now for the flavoring, we're going to add in 2 to 3 tablespoons of Kahlua. If you want, you can also add in a little bit of vanilla extract for this. Just make sure you really don't go past 3 tablespoons of liquid in this though, as it starts to thin out too much. Now that it's started to soften up, let's add in our icing sugar. We want to add in 4 to 6 cups of icing sugar, depending on how sweet you like it. I'm just going to start by doing half a cup at a time. I don't want everything to spray everywhere, but we'll see how that goes. Let's start it on low. And that's what happens if you overfill it. It's gonna go everywhere. So that's perfect sweetness for me. I ended up doing 5.5 cups of icing sugar. We have about 8 minutes left on our cake, so we'll just set this aside. Alright, they're not shaking anymore, so let's take them out and let them rest on a wire rack. Let these cool for about 15 minutes or so. I see that's got a little bit of a dent here. So one way we can fix that is to turn it upside down to settle while it's cooling down. But give it 15 minutes first, and then we'll check back in. It's been about 15 minutes. I think these have cooled down enough, so I'm just going to turn them over for now. let's see if we can get that dent out. I have some parchment paper that I'm gonna lay down on the counter. As you can see, the cake pulls away from the edges, which is what we like to see. Now, let's see if we can do this in one fell swoop. Just like that. Don't take it out, just let it sit and settle there. Hopefully, this will solve our dent problem. So now that we have those turned over, let it cool down for 15 to 20 minutes or until there's no heat left. You don't want to take these out of the pan too early, as they're more likely to rip or crumble. Alright, it's been about 20 minutes now. These have cooled off quite a bit. Let's remove the cake from the pans. If we did this right, it should pop right out. Perfect. Now, don't forget to remove the parchment paper from the bottom as well. Let's just move these off to the side and grab ourselves a cake stand. If you want to help everything stick down, just take a little bit of your icing and spread it out in the center. This will help when icing the cake. Alright, so grab your first layer there. Make sure you support it. Place it right into the center. Now, grab a little bit of icing and just blob it straight in the middle. Work from the center out to the edges. This should help even everything out. Now, I'm not the best at this, but you know, we all gotta start somewhere. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. Let's get on to our next layer. Just give it a little pat down. Make sure you line it up. Alright, now for the last layer. If your cake is sliding around like mine, you can always put it in the fridge to firm up. It just takes an extra half hour or so. Now, for the sides, just layer it on a little bit at a time. So, we have a little bit of extra icing. Let's make a couple dollops on top. Let's give it a little base as well. Top it off with some walnut pieces. And there you have it. A 3-tier carrot cake with Kahlua cream cheese icing topped with walnuts. If you enjoyed today's video, hit that subscribe button, but if you're not ready for that commitment yet, then click here for another video. And as always, thanks for watching. See you next time.